All right. What do we got for a synopsis, Nick, on this season 1 here?
I love that song, by the way.
The Cranberries?
Yeah, is that the name of the band?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, and I've heard, I think it's Bad Wolves does a cover of that too, and I love that cover too.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but
Get that.
anyways, the synopsis, after a global pandemic destroys civilization, a hardened survivor takes charge of a 14-year-old girl who may be humanity's last hope.
Who knows? This is a cast and crew. This is created by Neil Druckmann, both the TV and the game, as well as Craig Mazin, starring Pedro Pascal as Joel Miller, Bella Ramsey as Ellie Williams, Anna Torv as Tess, Nick Offerman as Bill, Murray Bartlett as Frank, Lamar Johnson as Henry, Kayvon Woodard as Sam, Melanie Linsky as Kathleen Coughlin, Jeffrey Pierce as Perry, Nico Parker as Sarah Miller, Merle Dandridge as Marlene, Gabriel Luna as Tommy Miller, Scott Shepard as David, the religious pastor cannibal, Storm Reed as Riley Abel, that's Ellie's friend, right? In the QZ zone there.
Mhm.
Ashley Johnson, Anna Williams, who's Ellie's mom, and Rutina Wesley, no relation to myself. That's Maria, who's Tommy's wife. And some of these characters, not all of them, but Ashley Johnson, for example, like voiced apparently Ellie in the game. I think Marlene did as well. Merla Dandridge did that same character. There's a few others.
Yeah, I think we actually saw the guy who voiced Joel. So when you were talking about the priest, I believe his like number two or number one, whatever it is, that was the actual voice of Joel in the
Oh yeah,
game.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's cool. They did a good homage to all the voice actors from the video game, which obviously was the birth of all this.
Mhm.
Nick, why don't you give us the episode rundown? You don't have to give us the individual scores, but how about the overall scores there?
Yeah. So well, look, when you look at the lowest rated episode, we got Left Behind. That was a 7.4 out of 10
Mm-hmm.
on IMDb. But when you look at the critic score, actually, the lowest from Rotten Tomatoes, the lowest graded episode was Look for the Light. That got an 88%. But most of the stuff was in the 90s range, high 80s range. In the end, on IMDb, this got a 9 out of 10, 9 even. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, it's a 96-89 split for season 1 overall.
Yeah, universally beloved by critics and audience alike. I think this is one of the great unifiers this country needs right now. Dare I get political, right?
Yeah.
But maybe zombies is the thing that will unite us all, right? Who knows?
Oh yeah. Well, are we sure about that? Because
I don't know. Yeah, this show may not be a good example of that. That's a good
Yeah.
point. I don't know. All right, so the exit survey is over. We answered everything there.
Yeah. Even when you're on the same side, you're not on the same side, as we learned by the end of this.
As it turns out, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's hop into it though. We'll get this one over and done with. Did this meet your expectations and hype?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play the game, and I know you didn't either.
Mhm.
But like, I was blown away with this still, but I think that was the thing I was most blown away by, though, was everybody's response to this. Because yes, like people like us who didn't play the games, like were very interested in it. And then the people who played the game still really liked it. I'm sure they had their criticisms. I saw some online, but they really liked it largely. So, yeah, I would absolutely exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, I agree exceedingly so. I have no real prior knowledge of the game other than that it was like apparently a great story and a really good zombie game. That was about it.
Mhm.
And what you said about like again like a good game, but also people who didn't watch it. It was really like a well produced show. That's a huge part of HBO. Some of these other great titles that have been adapted from video games, I think of like Uncharted or Assassin's Creed, maybe weren't in the best hands. But with
Mm.
HBO, they're going to do it right. Lovecraft Country, is that a game? I think that
Maybe.
was a pretty well received show there. But Watchmen, they've done all these types of like IP reboots really well over the years, and kind of gave it again that certain like breathe a certain level of life and levity into it. That's more than just like a fun adaptation of a video game. So yeah, that they exceedingly so met my expectations and hype.
Mhm. Yeah, I think in general, like you puts an IP in the hands of HBO, usually you're in pretty good shape. As long as you don't go like, I don't know, 7 or 8 seasons, something like that.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's a good point there. Yeah, I left out Game of Thrones there, right? That's the obvious one.
Mm.
Would this have been better as a 2+ hour movie?
I don't think so. No, because there's just so much going on, and like there's something that, like specific with this show that I've saw. Like of course, I watched Walking Dead. I'm still trying to finish it. But it's like I like the show a lot. But one thing that I remember people starting to criticize over and over is they just introduce characters so you have someone who can die in that episode. And I agree, like they definitely did that a lot. They also do that in this show, but you care about the characters, and it tells, and it also like in ways they mirror Ellie and Joel at times. You see that with
Mhm.
the pair as well. But they all serve a purpose on all of it too, and they invest you can invest time in those characters. So they did an amazing job with that. So I don't think you can do that in a 2 hour plus movie. So like that's just an important part of this and making it feel like a video game.
Yeah, the world building, getting to know the characters, kind of getting invested in the characters. I don't think you get as deep as you can, obviously,
Mhm.
in a 2 hour, 2.5 hour movie as you would a 7 to 9 hours of television, right? That's obvious there, and I agree, right? So like that was what this show did the best. So obviously it wouldn't be as good, but I think there is like blockbuster franchise potential in this, and making this there is a movie that
Yeah.
can be made from this, and I would go see it on during the summer, and then
Mhm.
probably wait for the second one to come out and be equally excited too. So I think there's a way that you can do it. Is it as in depth? Is it as emotionally gripping and investing as it was? No, but I still think that there's $100 million movie in there.
I agree. I quite honestly, like I'm assuming that the creator had some like stake in it, still because obviously he was involved. But like I can't believe that this didn't get turned into a movie. Like it's great that it
Yeah.
didn't. It should not be. Because I think yeah, it would make a lot of money, but I don't think it would have been as well received by the loyal people of the game. And then that kind of can change. Oh, do we do another one? I'm sure they would have done like two movies out of this, but it's just there's so much to cover, and you would have had a yada yada, a lot of different things, I think.
Oh yeah, and just think about like it's just amazing the shift in maybe 10 or 15 years, right? Because 10 or 15 years ago, this is a movie, no quite like no one's even thinking about doing
100%.
this on TV, right? But now, like if this was a movie, this is just another blockbuster movie that's in the same vein of like Hunger Games or something. It's not going to be up for awards or anything
Mhm.
like that, but you put it on HBO, it's
Spot
suddenly
on.
prestige TV. Suddenly it's like appointment viewing that everyone's talking about at work the next day, and it's going to sweep up all the awards there. So it's amazing how, like, if it was a movie, it would just kind of get lost in the shuffle of another like dystopian action movie, right? But
Yeah.
now this has like this opportunity to kind of live on its own for a while, which is cool.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the whole dystopia stuff too. We'll talk about that more later, but that's another good point to bring up.
Well, we got into some of the episodes and what some of the general perception of some of the episodes were, the favorites and least favorites and whatnot. But personally, what was your favorite episode of the series?
Yeah, to me, it was a no-brainer. It was episode 5 because throughout all of this, we see zombies, mixed in, but we don't see a whole lot because obviously this is years down the line. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of people have died off or whatever's happened to these zombies. And I know we're going to see more that pop up, but like we get the clickers really early on, and those things are friggin' nuts. But then like episode 5, the stuff with Sam and Henry was very interesting, and the way that shook out was obviously like emotional because I thought, oh, they'll stick with you for a little bit. It's like, nope. Again, they put you in, they give you these characters that you care about, think they're going to stay for a while, and then they just twist your arm and make you cry. But with the other thing was the action, like all the zombies that we get, the influx of them that were like buried under that house that was
Yeah.
insane.
And again, I have no understanding of the game. That was one of my favorite episodes as well. But so having no concept of the game or anything, when I started seeing the sinkhole form, they kind of like alluded to it earlier in the episode. I was like, "What is that? Like, what could that
Mm,
possibly be?" And they're like, "Just leave it. Don't worry about it." And they're like,
yeah,
"Are you sure?" They're kind of shocked that was like the response. And then they call back to it at the end of the episode or an episode later, and it's that huge again like infestation of clickers coming out from under the ground. And what was so cool, you get the monster clicker who's just like ripping dudes apart, and I'm like, what? Who is that? What is that? We get
yeah.
no mention of it, which I guess maybe works. Now I'm like, I'm fixated on the monster clicker. Like,
Mm,
was this just some like bodybuilding dude? You know what I mean? Who just got
the thing's
infected and
massive.
overcame, or
Yeah.
was this like the queen clicker?
Yeah, that thing was friggin' massive, and we got like other ones because I remember people talking about like spores like we didn't. I don't think we saw a lot of that, but that's another thing that's going to get thrown in the mix too. Which
Okay.
when I think of spores, I think of the you played Halo, right?
Yeah.
Remember the that like really ugly like thing that would like drop like it like waddle and then kind of drop down and all the little guys would come out of it.
Yes.
I
Yes.
that
Oh.
I think of
Ooh.
that. Yeah, that was the
Yep.
worst. That's what I always think of. I hate the flood, man. The
The
friggin' worst.
flood. I was trying to think of that episode. Oh yeah. Or that level there. Yep.
They're the worst.
That's tough. Yeah. So episode 5 is definitely up there for me. Episode 8, when you talk about the cannibal cult group, and there and everything that gets involved with Ellie kind of breaking free, and then you're kind of waiting for Joel to come in, and that's his like assault on the whole little commune area there, and it
Mhm,
ends up Ellie kind of being like the badass and kind of showing her medal and everything.
mhm.
Very interesting stuff. The David, the Scott Shepherd is the actor's name there, did a fantastic job of just kind of being this like, again, we talk about this kind of with Kang, but like that quiet, measured,
Oh,
crazy,
yeah. Yeah.
um, to a different degree, obviously. But I mean, that in that same vein, like really good job at that. Very
Mhm.
memorable performance, very
Yeah.
eerie. You would hear this a lot. I've heard this other one. It's not a unique thought, but when the people are more scary than the zombies, that's kind of like what they're going for here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But
Or
and
worse than the zombies.
I mean, and when you look at him too, that's another example of all the excuse me, these side characters that are featured throughout this whole thing. Because it's Kathleen, I think, was one of them as well, and then of course Sam, Henry,
Hmm.
Tess is a side character as well. Like because all these people are only around for so long, they do like all these people did an outstanding job, and sometimes that's like what takes to make a good show is like all these people who you see really quickly for a limited time.
Making the
It-
most of they're a whole bunch of 6 men coming off the bench there. There's no real
exactly.
super. Well, you got your superstars, but you
Yes.
got this is like the '96 Dream Team there.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna go with like the Bulls. It's like Pippen and
Oh, okay,
Jordan.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Even that too. But I mean,
yeah,
when you're pulling off like I don't know, Reggie Miller off the bench or something
yeah,
like that, like you're doing pretty good here.
hundred
Uh,
percent.
the last one for the favorite episode 3. We got to talk about episode 3 here because this was one of
I
the
mean,
one of the most talked about moments of the season. Um, Great episode. You get Bill and Frank in there. You get their love story. It's fine. It's a good story. I watched this at this point coming back. So it was maybe on episode 5 or 6 in the season when I finally caught up to it. So I got a chance of kind of reading the room, engaging the reaction to it. And it by the way that it was told to me, I was just a little disappointed. I think people get like very excited over like a Brokeback Mountain type of situation, two masculine men showing emotion. So I think people kind of ooze over it a little bit more. But what I did love about it was all the prepping stuff.
I knew that was
All
your
the
favorite thing.
prep, the whole prepping stuff was amazing, and I could just watch maybe 9 hours of gay Ron Swanson just prepping for life, and getting everything done, and like how he was able to just take his truck and go to the Home Depot and just really just have like be like a kid in a candy store, like this is like the adult dream instead of being like trapped in a mall, which we get in episode 7. You get the adult version of just like being fully prepared, finally being proven right. It sucks, but you're like, I've been right all these years, and now I'm gonna just live my best life. And that's like kind of cool. You're lonely, but you're there.
When you cited the when you said the Home Depot thing, like instantly, I'm like in him like being a kid in a candy store. Like I can imagine, I know that laugh that he has in that moment too. From you've
Yeah.
watched enough Parks and Rec, you know what we're talking about. But the funniest thing was for you like watching it way after everybody else did, because I saw it after like some of the hype and everything like that, and I really enjoyed the episode. But what's funny is when you texted the group, I don't remember if you were in the middle of it or at the as you just finished the episode, but you're like instantly like, I don't know if I trust Frank.
Oh yeah, right off the bat. No, this was like right after. It had to be after, but like right in the beginning. I'm just surprised that more people didn't have the take that he was just like ready to like turn this guy into a gay man, just or do whatever it takes. Right? Maybe he was already gay, but it's not fully alluded to that Bill had prior gay relationships. Right? So he if I'm Frank and I'm getting caught in a run for my life there, and I've stumbled upon Bill, who
Mm,
is living this sweet life with Camus wine and roasted rabbit and like electricity and hot water in this fully protected little town, essentially.
Mm.
I'm going to do whatever I can. He just said he lost everyone in his group, 10 others, and it's just him. Like, there's no way I'm leaving that house without like putting forth any sort of effort. It's the age old question. How much money will it take for you to S a D? And like, just in a different way. Not saying that these guys already weren't, but I'm saying anybody in that position might be pushed to that brink of how far are you willing to go?
That's why I was like, that was your first thought is like, I don't know if I trust this guy. Like, you're very protective of
He's
Nick Offerman.
been. I mean, if you are Nick Offerman, if you are Bill, he hasn't let anybody else in. I'm sure that's not the first person he caught, right? I mean, we don't know how much time has necessarily passed. Like, and if he's like as prepared as we're led to believe that he was like waiting for some sort of apocalyptic dystopian world, then like, should he let the first person in? Yeah, so that was, I found like a little bit of a break from the character that we were kind of introduced as.
Yeah, I'm just like, well, I'm my like trying to.
But you're lonely too, so like I get that. It's like tough, right?
Well, that's the thing is it's been a while at that point in time. I don't know. I don't remember how long it had been. Obviously, because they spent like what was it, 20 something years together or something close to that, or 16, whatever.
And Bill gave it up so quick.
But see,
that's what I kind of laughed at. Was like he gave it up real quick.
But see, this is as you're going through all this, I'm like, well, maybe he thought he was hot, like, and that's why he was like right away so quick to doing it. Because again, he's lonely. Again, I don't know if it's been. I feel like it had been only a handful of years, but like at some point you're lonely and everything like that. And obviously he's got like trying to get by on his own, and doing just fine.
Everyone's got needs,
right? But I wonder, like that's my first thought is like, oh, he found him attractive, and then he spent time with him, and then boom. Like,
but he's like weary of him too, and they like, so my perception after hearing everyone talk about it was that it was going to be a like more of an overtime thing, that you see them kind of like get together. There's like a period of time where like they're kind of feeling each other out, getting to know one another, not like a passage of time throughout like a whole love story, like a reenacted version of Up, like a live action version of Up. But so when they start playing the piano and like having the dinner and all that stuff, it just feels like it moves very fast. And I know you have to kind of do that with the framing of how they're telling that story, right? So like I don't have a problem with it, but it just I kind of laughed. I was like, wow, this is quick. Like, again, he lets his guard down very fast, whether he's just trying to get his rocks off or not. Like, he's putting himself in a very vulnerable position. One, I'm not sure that he was like willing to put himself in other vulnerable positions. Clearly, he was insulating himself.
It's an interesting, I guess that's a paradox, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that's what makes it so beautiful, man.
But it lived up to it, because it like the White Lotus guy is very electric on camera. He has this like magnetizing presence on camera. It's Frank. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even watch that.
Yeah, he's very charming, right? He's got these like big pearly white teeth and stuff. Like, I can see how he can be swept up. How Bill can be swept up by him.
Yeah. No, he's
a good job by both of them.
Yes. No, it was, it was a very well done episode. It was very I don't think I talked to somebody that said they like teared up a little bit, but I thought it was,
I think everybody did, right? I think a lot of people said they teared up through it.
I wouldn't say I teared up. I don't think I teared up in this show once.
No, but I could feel the tender moments though.
Yes. I mean, that whole episode was that.
Yeah, and even stuff like between Ellie and Joel, and then Joel and Tommy, and then even Joel and Tess to a degree there. But at least favorite episodes, I think these were all relatively good. That's why I worded it as least favorite.
No, yeah, no, they were all good. Like, and I get why the Left Behind was like I get why IMDb, because you're starting to deal with more of like that's a mix of fans and critics. I think with IMDb,
I think so. Yeah,
I'm not certain, but I can understand why people are like, well, it's another like side episode where it's like, yeah, it's explaining Ellie's history, but we've already gotten that with Long Time, where you're looking back at moving away from the main story. but yeah, like so I can get that, but it's still like it was a well done episode. Like, and it's an interesting look into her background and understanding what's kind of going on with her. But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
that
think I had a least favorite episode.
that one I kind of felt myself fast forwarding through. Again, it's a cool trope of like going to visit the mall when it's abandoned and you have no one else there. Like I'm kind of a sucker for that. Was that, Paddington Bear or something like that, and Corduroy, all that good stuff, right? Love those stories. But you know, I found myself fast forwarding through it at certain points in time. Episode 6, when they're going to like the commune stuff, like I was a little kind of like a little bored through that, but again, not too much there. I think that was the commune, the kin episode.
The
When,
Wyoming thing.
yeah, when Tommy's reunited
Yes,
with Joel, right?
I believe
Yeah,
you're
so
right. Yeah.
very. I mean, I love the whole setting, like about how everyone kind of gathered together there in Jackson, and that they had the whole little commune there. I thought that was very cool. Um, but yeah, it's just a little bit of a slower episode, I guess, if I had to rank those in any sort of way. Episode 9 was great, but a little short too.
Mm.
You would have liked a little more of that, but
Oh man, yeah. Is one what a way to
sticking
leave
nits.
people at the end of the season.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely there. All right. So sticking with, now we get to some morality questions here. Right? If you were in the same setting, what do you think you would most likely be? Would you be Fedra, Firefly, a Raider, a standalone like Bill, or like some of those natives there next to the Jackson area, communist, or a cannibal?
Yeah. So when you say communist, do you mean like actually like what are you talking about? Isn't that what the people in Wyoming? Is that what they do?
That's kind of the joke, right? It's like not. Is it Marlene? No, it's Tommy's wife there, the leader of the tribe.
I think
She's
it's
like,
Maria.
Maria, yeah. She's like, no, we're communes. This is a commune. We're communists. And Tommy kind of rolls his eyes, and like Joel says, oh, so you're communists and stuff, because they
Mm.
say like no one works together. And then like he has
Interesting.
to clarify later to Ellie that like communism only works in small,
Mm.
small doses,
That's
widespread. It
okay.
doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay, you're okay. So I because like I
That's
got
kind of the
yeah.
joke. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember it now. I just
No one wants to say they're a
I don't know.
communist unless you're that new Scream review podcast, PCP.
Oh yeah, that's right. Scream review podcast. What are you talking about? Got me there. But honestly, I think realistically looking at the two, or looking at this grouping, I think standalone, or I think I'd be like in a group like that. Like that's what I'd hope to be.
Yeah,
Certainly, but then again, like the commune, the what was it, the guy you were talking about before, the preacher or whatever, like
right.
that was kind of a commune too in some way, right? Like maybe not run the same exact way, but you're with a group of
You
people.
got to pick the right leader. You got to
Yeah.
pick the right alpha.
So like if you have a leader at your commune, like I'd probably like not love that idea, because like this kind of a thing could happen. And I'm sorry, having seen enough dystopian movies and stuff, or shows, we've seen enough of this where like they do some shady shit, and this is as weird as it gets. So I think I'd lean towards attempting at least to be standalone.
I think ideally everyone wants to think they would be standalone, right? Because you don't want to be like,
Huh.
you want to be self-sufficient and everything. I'm with you. Like I would like to think how long I can go. And to that extent, I think Joel could have been like a standalone guy on his own. Like I don't know why he was in the QZ and like stuff like
Yeah.
that for as long as, like, I don't know why he just didn't try to go on his own. It wouldn't be a story otherwise, but he's more than capable to do that on his own there. The commune thing seems awesome. That seems great. The red-blooded American in me hates uttering those words, but in that setting, that makes sense, right? Families are in a way kind of communistic, socialistic. So I get that, right? But Fedra, Fireflies, like if I'm in a city, I don't know. Like I would like to think I'm a free willing, like free government person, but like what are the goals of Fedra? Are they trying to rebuild society?
I mean, it seems like they're trying to.
Right? They're cleaning out the sewers and shit and all that stuff. And
I mean, I guess so, but they're not. Like, yeah, they're trying to rebuild society, but like the Fireflies also would argue they're trying to in some capacity. It seems like too. So I don't know.
yeah, right. They are each trying to do it in their own ways. Who's right or wrong? Like I'm not sure
Mm,
if I could. That just seems like Democrat and Republican to me. Like I
mm,
feel like I would just
yeah,
want to get out of there and be like, you both seem like you're full of shit, and I want nothing to do with you here.
yeah. I was gonna say it seems like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, exactly. So like it would be a breakaway society a la the Jackson. I mean, they had electricity and Christmas, right? I mean, who doesn't want to have Christmas?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to like see the thing is I want to go towards that. It's just like trusting people in this setting where there's like no rules, whatever. Like there's no rules. Like it's more. It's why it becomes like the Wild West now at
Hmm.
this point. Like so you can get away with so much more because in this setting you don't have internet. You don't have like this large governing body that can try and like stop people from like
Yeah, no
going.
courts or cops or anything. It's
No,
just
all
street
these different
justice.
things. Exactly, street justice. So it's just I don't know if I trust that. I feel more comfortable trying to, isolate in some way, but
Yeah, oh yeah. And that's, I mean, I'm sure that's how the commune kind of starts, right? It probably starts with like a group of like 5 or 6 people, and then that you have to go out and get resources, right? So you got to go outside, and then eventually you either capture people, or people convince you to get let into the tribe, or they stumble upon the tribe, and then it just grows and grows and grows, right? So I mean, that's kind of like ideally how you would rebuild society here, which gets us to our next question about Joel and his decision in episode 9 to go on a shooting rampage. Of course, after Ellie was may or may not have been properly informed about the cordyceps surgery, about her immunity, trying to find some sort of a vaccine. Um, and again, there nothing was 100% sure, but it sounded like she was willing to take that chance. At the end of episode 8, earlier in episode 9, there seemed to be some sort of a conversation, like she was ready to finish the job, quote unquote, right? When Joel kind of has that change of heart.
yeah, I mean, this is another thing where when you talk about like, oh, it seems like there's like jumps that are made or things that aren't exactly clear. Like I'm glad like when they so it gets it's not always easy to make those decisions like creatively. Like, okay, we're gonna leave this ambiguous and we're gonna jump here, and then you have to leave like let the viewer or the reader put some pieces together. It's always
I
a
think
risk.
they did it right, because we're
Yeah,
talking about it. We're,
yeah,
no matter which way you went, if they showed one way or the other, everyone's still going to be pissed off. But to leave
yes.
it up to the audience and just have the discussion like we're having now, I think that's the better way. It's almost like the Sopranos ending, right? It's like, does he
Yeah,
die or not? Like,
I still haven't watched Sopranos.
I don't, I haven't either, but I got the gist. I know what.
Ah, but I will tell you, like I think like they did it well here. I think in general they do. That's one of the strengths of this show. I think like any good show, you like that is generally a strength is they like leave room for like imagination in the right spots. They don't
Mhm.
like over, but they also know when to hold your hand too. Um,
Right.
but for me, when it comes to this, did you ask for it? Because I kind of jumped ahead. Like
No. I was just kind of explaining the whole decision there for people who didn't know. But yeah, obviously, of him to go on the shooting rampage. I mean, do you agree with that, or what's your take on it? Like,
um,
was he in the right or was he in the wrong?
I have my opinion, and but I want to know like I've been going first and everything. Do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think he's incredibly wrong and extremely selfish here, because I can understand from the perspective that he's now grown attached to Ellie. He views her as his daughter, and he's never fully processed his daughter's death.
Mm,
Who came at the hands of humans, right, and not of the clickers there. So he holds a lot of resentment towards his own species, right?
mhm.
Uh, but still, if there is a chance, like even a minuscule chance, to end this whole thing with a vaccine, you have to take that chance. And if all we have to go off of is like that kind of vague response that Ellie had, that she's like ready to finish the job and kind of go the distance or whatever. That for me is enough of a viewer to view Joel as in the wrong on this, because no matter how bad that you view society up until this point, you're damning the future.
Mm,
So no matter how bad you think like the current race of humans deserves whatever's coming to them or whatever is there, that's not to say that the people who are coming after them don't deserve to be brought up in the same world. And that's an extremely selfish decision, just to be like, I can't grapple with my own feelings that I've developed after not giving a shit about this girl.
mhm.
So I'm gonna kill everybody in the way.
I feel like in the past I would like completely agree with you, and I think like, but right now I've been off the rip. I was kind of conflicted about it, and I still kind of am. Like to an extent, I don't blame Joel for what he did because, like, yeah, is it not ideal that he's hasn't dealt with the emotions of the passing of his daughter, or the death of his daughter, however you want to put it. No, that's obviously someone should try and deal with it as much as it's never easy to get over something like that. But I this should have been Ellie's decision. And again, when we talk about the great strengths of the show, communication almost always seems like to be the thing, or lack thereof always seems to be the thing that like jettisons like certain like actions, and or the plot of a story, and that is the
Mhm.
case right here. This could have been avoided if or you we would all feel maybe differently about it if Joel had talked to Ellie beforehand and said, what if this is comes down to your life, like if are you willing to make that sacrifice? Well, yeah, like because again
Or
if you
even Marlene, right? If Marlene has that conversation, yeah.
Marlene should have had. I mean, if Marlene didn't have that conversation, like shame on her, because like she's the one. Like, and that's what I'm assuming is that Marlene
Right.
didn't have that conversation. Also, I would have liked it if Joel asked Marlene that question too, which is like. But I got to imagine that Marlene didn't ask that because she would have told Joel she wants this. She understands. We were clear with her about it, but Joel should have had that conversation with her, and that's where everything would have been avoided.
And Marlene's such an idiot, right? Because if she knows enough to hide that like Ellie is gonna die from Ellie, right? That
Mm,
she's not gonna make it out from the surgery, which I think is what we're assuming here is that the conversation was like you could save the world, but you're not gonna die, essentially, right? That at least that's how I interpreted it. She's smart enough to do that, but and she knows Joel enough that he's like off the deep end. So he wakes, he gets woken up out of his concussion sleep and she tells him immediately. So why tell him?
mhm.
Why don't tell him like until after the surgery's done?
It could have been there are quite a few ways that it could have been handled, and I get like it, but like at the same time, everything that happened does make sense in a way. Like it all felt very natural. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like lazy writing or anything to that degree.
No, 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 no.
Because as much as like Marlene, like, you're right. Like Marlene could have handled that a few different ways and handled it better. Hell, she could have just lied to Joel and said, "Look, I talked to her about it, and I
Sure, right,
understand, and she wanted me
right.
to tell you this." Like she could have done all these different things, but at the same time, as much as she knows Joel, she also doesn't know Joel. She doesn't know that he's going to fly off the handle in this capacity like he did. Like he doesn't know that he grew this,
But
developed this
she
attachment,
knows he's a killer though, and like,
right? But also doesn't know that she developed this attachment. Joel didn't even want to do
oh,
this in the
I see
first
what you're
place.
saying. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so there's like a few different, but that's where, and then that's where in the end, like all of this first season was building up to this moment, and they did an outstanding job of developing, fostering that relationship, but not too quickly between Ellie and Joel, but then also really at the same time establishing like you can see why Marlene would misread this situation in, because it all comes down to this next season is all ripple of what happened in that last episode.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think the other argument that it's like Joel thought of Ellie as a daughter and as family and stuff. And listen, if it was his daughter, that's a different conversation. If it was family, but this is something that unfortunately this is not blood. Like whatever feelings that you have developed over this time, like you have to put aside for the greater good of humanity, no matter how much of a grudge you hold against it.
See, and that's where my thing is like she needs to have the choice. Like in the end, like you want to say
Right.
If Ellie's selfish because she didn't want to do it, like well that's whatever, that's a different conversation. But like she needs to have the choice, and if she didn't have the choice and was not informed about the situation, like it's like I don't blame, like, and that's how I interpret all this. Like she didn't know, although like the way she acted afterwards is kind of like leads you to think that maybe she did know that she was going to die. It's just they've done a great job of making it so murky. But if she didn't
Right.
have the choice, if she didn't have all the full understanding of what was going on, then I don't blame Joel for doing what he did.
Yeah, and again, like if it's the daughter, if it is his real daughter, blood and all that stuff, then you don't need to ask her consent. I think he has the right to go in and pull her out there. But again, not his kid, not his right to make that decision for her. So that's what I think. You get
Where we disagree a little
you
bit.
talk about age consent laws and a dystopian post-apocalyptic zombie world. Like I'm sorry, that's just gets thrown out the window there. Like there's no court of law here to see whether this person is of sound mind to be making sound decisions. Like that's just not, you can't apply societal structure in a world that has no society and no structure.
This is why, I mean, that's why to me, in the end, it is her decision. But
Yeah,
if she's not given that, like then to me, like that's where I draw the line. Is what it comes down to. It doesn't, and to me, like it's someone you developed a personal relationship with, like debate. You want to debate how close they were, whatever. But like to me, it doesn't. The blood part doesn't matter because they're so close. And I get it. It's driven by partially his
It's for
trauma.
humanity, man. It's for humanity. It's not about you at that point.
But
You have to put that aside.
this is where the other thing is too. Like sometimes we've seen it. Like I feel like we've seen things
He's
where
an
it's
old
like
man.
it's to save the world, and it's like last minute, last second, like the world's going to crumble right now in this moment, or or you have to, that this person has to die. That would I will also say is different. I understand you're still dealing with a shit world out there, but it's not like you can't go and live a full life.
No, but he could have get any sort of test done on Ellie that could have happened. He could have gone back to that commune in Jackson, Wyoming with his brother and possibly see a full life for his future niece and nephew, but he eliminated that possibility.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't even thinking about his future niece or nephew or his brother or anything like that. You know what I mean? So
Oh
like,
yeah, he's put them in a shit spot.
purely for himself there. And he's old. I mean, he talked about not even wanting to finish that trek anyway. He wanted Tommy to go out and do it because he thought he was going to wind up and getting her killed or himself killed, which almost happened, right?
Mm.
So like he knows he doesn't have much time left here. Like he just got his spleen stabbed out and had like surgery, and like I'm not sure how he's still moving around like he is. So he's on his deathbed for all intents and purposes here. Like that is an extremely selfish move for someone who's on death's door.
By the way, speaking of selfish versus unselfish, but what Marlene is actually doing in all this too, like the relationship with her and Ellie, like again, I know some stuff about the game, some stuff I probably wish I didn't know, but it's like that was a fascinating, like again, like we talked about, like having two opposite things side by side. Very interesting seeing that too.
Yeah, and I loved actually seeing like we'll get into that in a little bit. I think we wrapped up this question though. So what do you think was the most rewatchable scene from season 1?
So getting the clickers off the rip, like I didn't know that was a thing in the game, but oh my God, those things were absolutely terrifying. That scene had me on the edge of my seat. Cause again, like we don't know, stuff about some of the characters, but not all of them. And then the other one too was like the zombies, like we talked about before from season 5, where the zombies like overflow out of the sinkhole and they decimate
Kansas City there. Yep.
Yeah. Kathleen and company. Kathleen got hers. That was something.
Yes, yeah, she had to go too. She was a little too overbearing for me. But Ellie versus the cult leader David, great scene. That whole lead up to it, again, like I mentioned, with Joel kind of storming in through the rest of the town there. Bill prepping, again, could watch like that on replay. That's like ASMR for me. Just him, just kind of like slowly getting everything ready, setting up the electric fence, pouring all the wine, just filling up the gasoline, just kind of like shooting the breeze, whistling Dixie, like just living the good life, or like watching the whole town roll in with the martial law, with like all the military just taking everybody out. And he's just watching them on his CCTV cameras down in his bunker. Like I was right. So very, very cool there. And then you mentioned the KC battleground there. So that's probably the winner, the KC battleground with the infected clickers coming out of the ground. You got the queen clicker there, whatever it was. I want more of the queen clicker. I want more info on that. Bring back the queen clicker for season 2.
Something tells me that thing has its own name, and we're going to get that.
It had to be like a semi boss or something like that in the game, which was cool too. Because another cool scene, which I forget which episode it was, but Joel has the sniper, and he's up above, and he's trying to clear out all the clickers and infected around from Ellie. Like that was really cool, because I imagine that was like a key part in the game that you had to do. You're Joel, and you had to guide Ellie through safety. And I was like, that's a really cool scene. So some of the video game aspects I could tell were coming through here.
That's a great point. And look, I've said it before, I don't play games, much anymore, but definitely have enough experience to have recognize moments where it's like, this is what they're going for. And like, I say it all the time about like the Pattinson Batman movie, like how it felt like they were telling a whole comic book arc in that movie, and how it was awesome. It was really cool how they were able to get some of those things, like that element right where we're jumping across mediums from video game to show.
What do you think will age the best from season 1, Nick?
I mean the zombies, because those things are absolutely terrifying, and we don't always see like terrifying zombies. I always say the 28 days, 28 weeks later zombies are always like the ones that freak me out the most. These right now are my number one. I think, when you look back on this, this is like a masterclass, maybe we could say, on shows making you care about side characters who die quickly more, for good or bad reasons. Whether you're talking about like Kathleen or Henry and Sam or the preacher, like they were like you liked or disliked those characters, but we cared about them all once they bit the bullet. Some literally, but with this again, it's something that The Walking Dead did struggle with, and I think just because you had an established group, and then later on you tried to keep that group alive by killing people off on purpose. But here it's like it just felt way more natural, for a few reasons that we've already cited.
Yeah, and I think first and foremost for me, it's Ellie. I did not like her at first. I thought she was very annoying. We talked about this a little bit last week on the
That's right,
episode
yep.
there. She took me about 6 or 7 episodes to get fully invested into her. And again, I think you brought up a great point. Is that she's supposed to be annoying, and you're kind of viewing her through the prism of Joel, right? So as you're going, he's annoyed by her throughout all of this. So that's a sign that the character is working, right? So I've kind of turned all the way around on her, but it took some time. So I think she will age the best for me from season 1. And just the world building and the setting, and kind of seeing where everyone's at different points of time in this post-apocalyptic world. And some are doing better than others and stuff. And I thought that was very cool. Human stories with the threat of zombies, right? So that's kind of the theme of this story. I lifted that from Mac from the Mac and Goop program. I thought he had a great point on his review of that. The threat of zombies is scarier than having an overflood of zombies all the time. So they're always kind of lurking around. You're kind of waiting for it, and then you're getting all of these deeply interesting human connection stories that ends up being the main kind of vehicle for it.
But you got to make sure that that threat is still there, and I'm saying that because of the Walking Dead stuff, because you get so much. Like, this is not about the comics because I have not read the entirety of that, but the with the show, like, you get into a lot of like human stuff, and then like there's not like sometimes the zombies pop up, or they pop up and it's not really a huge threat, or doesn't feel like a threat. It's just they like with the show. Don't get me wrong, that show, like where it hit a lull, a lot of people fell off. It does pick up, but this is like something that they need to continue to get right on this show. It's good, and it's not an easy thing to do.
All right, and what do you think is going to age the worst?
People's view of Joel. I mean, that's if you rewatch the season, or if you moving forward going into season 2.
Yeah, he's an asshole, right? I mean, he's a murderer. He's a killer. Like I mean, everyone kind of is. Everyone's just trying to get by, right? There's no real rules of society again.
He's a mean bastard, though. I mean, clearly, like, look, I understand. Like, I know I said, like, I don't blame Joel for what I did, but there's no, like, yes, it is a selfish move that he made. There's no two ways about it. And like what he had to do was, I mean, you can say what you want about like not wanting to let somebody like do that to your kid and everything like that, but being able to do what he did takes something that I don't know that either of us have, and then that's not an insult.
No, it's going all the way with it, right? And being comfortable with death and achieving death in creative ways.
Yeah, and it's funny because I saw someone tweet about like it felt like more of a standoff in the video game, and it's like it's funny how like it changes when you're not like you're not the one who's doing it.
Right. Yeah. No, you're really moving through it there, right? He's looking to kill a lot of these people here. Yeah. So Joel's decision, I think that's going to age the worst for me. Much like I mentioned, just giving up on humanity there. I think that's poor. Hollywood propping up communism versus downing Christianity. That seems like a popular trope. Going right back to the McCarthyism, Red Scare. Flashbacks, with the exception of the Bill and Frank story, but flashbacks overall.
Who had McCarthyism on their bingo card today? I just want to know.
That's a good one. You win. Bingo for you. That's a Yahtzee.
Anyway, sorry, I cut you off on the flashbacks.
No, but flashbacks, those were some of the weaker points in the season. Although I will give credit again to the Bill and Frank story, as well as Ellie's mother's story. I thought that was a cool flashback scene. But Ellie's backstory, not as much. I didn't really care for that as much there.
Dude,
Yeah,
I was really pissed with Marlene in that flashback. Like, I get it's tough that your friend, and I guess it's friends since childhood in their case, but I'm like watching, I'm like, damn, dude, like you have to do this as their friend. Like, come on.
yeah, I know it. Yeah, that's a tough decision, but that is like the humane thing to do, right? It's just to put them out of
100%.
their misery, and then it's like one less person or zombie to worry about.
Yeah.
Um, and a litany of best performances. Who had the best performance by a side character, Nick?
Oh man, we had so many. I mean, Tess, Henry, Sam, and Bill are the guys that are obviously on my radar. I mean, Bill obviously had like a full episode devoted to him. And Frank was obviously good in that as well. But we're more of Nick Offerman guys here. I think though, in the end, I can't give it to. I don't know. Where are you leaning on this?
I'm leaning towards Tess. I think she comes in as a hardened badass bitch with a bruised face right off the bat. You're like right as you're introduced to her, and then you see her. She's very capable on her own. I like the fact that her and Joel are almost seen as equals, and they are together because they're not codependent, but they see each other as stronger than being independent. If that makes
Hmm.
sense. They're stronger as a team, but not necessarily relying on one another. Which I think was very cool. And then her sacrifice at the end was great, kind of blowing up all the clickers there. Although it
Oh,
was one of the more grosser scenes with that like
dude,
sexual assault thing that was kind of going on there.
that
Like
was yeah.
I don't really know what was
Little-
up with that, but that
Jesus.
was definitely creepy.
You make a great case for Tess, but now thinking about it more, like she's obviously on my list, but I think I have to go with Sam in the end
Is that the
because
son? Was he deaf? Was the deaf
that's
son?
the deaf brother. He was him
Oh,
and
the
Henry.
brother. Right, right,
Yes,
right, right.
but like man, like that kid, he was like there's no
Conveyed a lot.
he's
Yeah.
yeah he's not vocalizing words. It's all through sign language, and it's just like so sad when that happens to me. And I'm talking and getting goosebumps. That was probably like the toughest thing for me to see. I think
Yeah,
it's like your little
children. You don't want
brother.
to see the children, anything like that, right? And you kind of see like the few moments of happiness there between Ellie and Sam when they're playing together, and Ellie like immediately takes to him. That's when things kind of started to turn with me on Ellie as well. And you kind of see that like the little pockets of happiness in an otherwise like very shitty scenario, right? So you
Yeah,
see that through Sam and Ellie a little bit there too. So I'm
yeah,
with. That was sad to see him turn, and
dude.
and then the shocking thing at the end with Henry. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
crazy. Like.
yeah. I mean that. I
But
mean.
again, like,
We
I
were
don't
talking
blame that's tough.
where you talk about like doing the humane thing, like as much as I go and criticize Marlene, it's like it's also a different relationship. That's like when you're good friends. Like it's obviously tough, but like when it's your little like your younger sibling or in your case you have an older brother. Like
Caregiver, yeah.
dude, I just like I mean honestly they gave me more like dad son vibes. Like I don't like I thought the same thing as
Yeah.
you did. So like that's just another level of like of attachment that's there with these two. So
No, that was good.
absolutely
And
brutal.
like you said, like you mentioned earlier, that kind of mirroring Joel and Ellie's situation. And maybe that kind of started turning the tide for Joel, kind of seeing
Mm,
himself in them or them
yeah.
in Henry and Sam and being like, okay, well, there is
Yeah.
some chance,
And that's the
opens himself
most
up a little bit.
that's the first moment I feel like where we're exposed to Ellie as a human because this whole time she's like yes she's annoying but also like there's this level of like ruthlessness to her as well that's like who is this kid and it's like Joel as a kid you would think Joel as a kid at least in some ways and then with what happened with Sam like instantly that's like I don't know if that was the big change for her and made her become more human. Obviously, she had a friend who she was very human around, very like normal human being. But the Sam experience definitely changed her or like opened something back up for her in some capacity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There, and Bill. Obviously, we talked a lot about him.
Yep.
David, who I thought did a great performance as the villain pastor there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Scott Shepard. So he was definitely worth mentioning. But for me, it's Tess. I can see Sam. I can see almost anyone here that you pick with and be. I'm not going to argue with you on it.
Almost like a
Um,
power rankings would make more sense here, and I would probably say that Kathleen would be the next on the list of this
mm,
group because
mhm.
she was like, oh god, she needed to
She
go.
was ruthless. So much. She was like kind of a bitch. So much so, like I didn't realize that it ended up being her husband that was killed. So I was like, who's not offing her at the
Mm,
moment that
yeah.
she's giving someone sass,
Mhm.
like,
But it's
like
also brilliant because, like, in the end, and I'm sure that this is writing from the game, I would imagine, but it's like Henry, like you see him as a sympathetic character or on his side. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, but in the end, like he
Yeah,
was kind of
he
the
did some
rat.
dirt. Nobody's
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah,
yeah,
nobody's
exactly.
perfect in this.
Very interesting.
Who lost the season for you?
I would say probably Marlene because I'm assuming
Yeah.
she's dead, right? Like
Yep.
we don't know because we didn't play the game, but I mean she's got to be. And like she goes and trusts Joel, and he gets the job done, and then nope, like in the end
No,
falls
this
apart.
is Joel is like Deshaun Jackson returning a punt return against I don't know, some team, and then showboating right at the goal line and fumbling.
Mhm.
That's kind of what it is. He gets
Yeah.
all the way there, and then it's like, damn. So yeah, tough look for Marlene, putting her faith in the wrong hands there. Ultimately, Joel is a big loser, and by way of that, humanity.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, it's
That's
just
it's 2023, right? Isn't that like how the movie is and like in present or the show is in present time? Like that's pretty bleak.
yes.
It's kind of
Yeah.
fucked up,
Oh yeah.
actually.
It is. Yeah. I'm trying. Yeah.
They didn't even alter that for the game, or for the TV show.
Yeah.
It's like, did they have to make it this year?
It's only fitting,
That's too
right?
real, man. A couple things I missed, by the way, on what age the best is the joke book, the puns.
Oh yeah.
That was a big misstep on my part, but big turning in my liking for Ellie was when breaking out it was Will Levinson
I
pun
think
jokes, I think it was.
something like that.
And also how the disease actually started. We get so caught up that the season ends up like
Yeah.
leaving the station, but how everything starts with like the fungi and like the temperature just dropping a few degrees, and that's all it takes, and like getting in the flour and like, all that stuff. So very interesting. It seems very real too. So that coupled with 2023, now that I'm talking it out, maybe it's what age the worst. I don't like that.
That they did do a really good job with that fungus stuff. That was really and start seeing those like videos of like is it cordyceps is what it's called or whatever,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
seeing that get in like bugs and like the zombie bugs and stuff like that. I remember
That's
seeing this
real.
years ago. Yes, and I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those are
it's
real things, zombie bugs. Oh,
yeah.
no, thank you. Who
Mhm.
won the season, Nick?
I think like video games turn movies is obviously huge. I mean, we're seeing it with Sonic 2, it's getting a lot of love there, and obviously we're getting Mario that we're gonna be talking about soon. The zombie and apocalypse genres, I think this is a huge win for them. That was the first thing I thought after like I think it was the first, if not the second episode, but it's like everybody's loving this. And as much as like, oh, we get inundated with all the zombie and apocalypse stuff, it's like if it's done well, people still want to watch these things. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But
you tell a good story. It doesn't matter if it's zombies or if it's a high school drama or murder mystery, whatever.
yep.
If you have a good human story around it, people are going to tune in.
100%. But for me, I think the winner in the end is Pedro Pascal because as much as you want to go and say Joel is a loser and stuff like that, like Pedro
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pascal, he had this and Mandalorian like running at the same time for a brief stretch. But it's like no one has been hotter like from the on the internet than Pedro Pascal over the past 9 weeks or something like that.
Jonathan Majors, baby. I
Yeah,
still might take Jonathan Majors, actually.
But it's those
Yeah,
two.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is
I'm with
legitimately
you.
those two guys, and it's to the point again. Like I said, I think when we watched when we did our Ant-Man review, if those two guys are
Hmm.
involved in a project in a significant role, then I'm going to give it a look.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I'm with you. So got no problem with Pedro Pascal. I'm with you on the video games turned TVs. That seems to be finally taking the turn, like you mentioned, after Uncharted, after Assassin's Creed, after Lara Croft Tomb Raider. All these other like failed video games. They finally seem to be starting to get that right.
Lara Croft.
But Ellie's the big winner of the season for me because I'm not sure if there's been a single character that I've watched TV or movies recently that I did a complete 180 on from the beginning to the end. So
Huh.
credit to her, credit to the writing team on that one there. So
Mm,
I liked the journey that she took me on.
mm. Bella Ramsey knows how to play a punk kid.
Yeah, because I tell you, she kind of has like a punchable face, like she had that punky attitude, and I'm like, just something about it just didn't work for me. Then she ended up just winning me over.
I think she's I mean she's got some serious potential because she's like 19, but between
Something like
this
that,
and
yeah.
and the girl the she was a Stark, I think it was, in Game of Thrones. So she was in the North in some capacity, but she didn't fuck around in that role either.
Yeah,
So
she was like the bear queen, the bear princess, or something like that. They were from the
yeah,
bear tribe of the North. They pledged their loyalty to the Starks.
yeah,
Yeah.
but she's like she's tough, like, and I'm just
Hmm.
yeah. But anyways, but yeah, so I think that's a fair winner for
What
sure.
would you give? I didn't ask for a score on this. What'd you give this season, Nick?
You know it's funny is you didn't ask for a score, so I didn't even think about it in that capacity. But I'd probably give this like a nine, definitely in the 90s, probably like a 93, I think.
Yeah, this is like 95 television form, 95,
Yeah,
96. This is like peak television form. It's right up
yeah,
there.
you might be right. It might be more than that. I usually like take a little bit of time once we have to do the grading. So I probably we're in the same neighborhood no matter what.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's an A. You're
For
getting
sure.
an A from us,
Yes.
The Last of Us there. So go check it out if you haven't, or listen to this review if you have.
Hmm.
But you're at the end now, so it's I guess you are listening to it then, but whatever.